you can't do everything. So yeah, I really leaned into, first and foremost, focusing on my clients and then doing kind of one back-end project at a time. So yeah, for this past year, 2024, for me, that project was writing a book. And there were times where, yes, it was very hard to just focus on that, in the sense that it was a big project. It wasn't just like writing a blog, right? It's a big project. So there were times as I was starting, mostly in the beginning, where I thought, I really want to spend most of my time this year on this project, when I could be, writing more templates for people, or building this library, or doing this. And so I had that thought of, maybe I should stop writing a book. Maybe I should do these other things that may, generate more, fast turnaround income versus, sitting out for the long haul writing this book. But then ultimately, I just thought, how are you going to feel a year from now if you write the book and if you don't write the book?
Hello, I'm Emma-Louise. Welcome back to the Ambitious Introvert Podcast. And it has been too long since I have been able to feature any of my clients or former clients on the show. So I am thrilled to be able to share this episode where I got to reconnect with the amazing Nicole Kepic, almost 3 years after she worked with me as a client. Nicole is a copywriter with over 20 years of marketing and copywriting experience. She's previously written for big brands such as Kellogg's, Walmart, and Keurig. And today she works with female coaches and creatives, helping them stand out from the crowd, attract their ideal clients, and sell out their signature offers with fun, feel-good sales copy. And the reason that she's here today is because Nicole is also the author of a new book, Don't Ask Me to Be Loud, The Introverted Girl's Guide to Online Business. She describes this as a fun, relatable book that shows you how you don't need to be the loudest or boldest person on the internet to run a thriving, joyful, and in-demand business. Now, as I say, this book is the reason that I've invited her onto the show, as it's something that I actually coached her around back in 2022. So I am so thrilled to see this out in the world. Now, 3 things I would absolutely love for you to take from this episode. The first is that even short periods of coaching can have a huge impact on how we think and act, and that those effects last a lifetime. So Nicole coached with me only for 4 months, 3 years ago, and yet you'll hear how she discusses some of the reframes and mindset shifts that she had, how she still uses them day to day in her business now. Secondly, I feel like the timing of this is ridiculous, and I could not have made it up, because we talk about Nicole's zone of genius. So if you have not listened to the previous episode, 205, with Gay Hendricks, I highly recommend that you do that. Nicole's zone of genius is obviously writing. And when we worked together, we wanted to make sure that she kept doing more of what she loves, outsourcing what she doesn't love as much, and really using her energy in the best way. And doing this added a potential, it was something like $50,000 or $60,000 revenue a year to her business, with her working the same amount of hours, but doing more of what she loves. And we share the way this happens, some of the tools that you can use yourself. Whether or not you're a business owner, this still works within your life, within your job, within your career, about really looking at where you're most effective and where should you be focusing that energy. And lastly, one of the biggest shifts, I think, for Nicole is understanding the way she makes decisions. And when we understand our own unique energy and how we best make decisions, it is one of the most empowering and liberating things. Nicole's book literally would not exist if she hadn't honed that skill of making a decision and understanding when she overthinks. That's not how she's truly making decisions. She shares how she's used this skill in other areas of her business as well, such as deciding whether to work with specific people or whether to take on certain projects, and how that overall has just made the whole experience of running a business even better for her. So I know you will love this episode, whether you're a business owner or not, just being able to hear about some of the ways that Nicole's really owned her energy and applied coaching to really get the most from it. And I highly, highly recommend that you all read her book. She is obviously a fantastic writer, but it's just packed full with stories and examples that make it so readable that I know any introvert is going to love. I'm also going to pop in the show notes some of the other episodes that I've previously done with clients, because as I say, it's been a long time. So I've got some previous case studies. I've got some former clients who I just featured their work because it's important work. So I will pop those in the show notes. And I really hope that you enjoy hearing Nicole and I reconnect after such a long time. Nicole, what an absolute pleasure to see you. Now that we've got our time frame straight and realized that it was actually 3 years ago that you were a client at the Ambitious Introvert.
Yeah, I can't get on board with that math. I feel like it was just last year, but yeah, this is so great to see you again and catch up. I feel like this will be a nice catch-up session as well as a podcast interview.
I know. That's what I said to you before we hit record. I was like, let's not be too structured, because it's just nice to find out what you've been up to, what's going on in your business, what you've been doing, which is a very exciting project, which I'm very thrilled to share with people. But first of all, tell us, whereabouts are you located? Where are you coming from today?
I'm in Canada. I'm just west of Toronto. So yes, I'm far from you, but I serve clients all around the world, as we do in this online space, right? So yeah, I'm a copywriter and I serve mostly clients in the US, but also Europe, Australia, other parts of the world.
And are you having a very Toronto winter at the moment?
We do not have a lot of snow. Like we barely had a white Christmas. Yeah. I mean, I'm in a part of Canada that has very tame winters compared to other places like Manitoba and, places I would not want to live. No offense to them, just because of the weather. But I hear it's been crazy everywhere else.
Yeah, I have a friend in Ottawa and it's -20. And she's like, yeah, it's kind of normal. Like that happens. I'm like, what? It's like -5 here and the country comes to a standstill.
Yeah, she is definitely more north than me. So that is the norm for her, unfortunately.
All the Americans listening are like, what? -20 Celsius. This is, we're talking Celsius before you think like, we're on Mars or something. So when we worked together, you were working as a copywriter, as you say, serving people all over. You worked on a VIP day model. Is that something you still do?
Yes, I have not deviated from that because it's been working. So I've just stayed with that offer. So yes, still doing VIP days. So it's basically either website copy, sales page copy, or email copy. I can write other things. I've written a million other things, but those are the 3 that people come to me for. So it's really been a nice, simple business model. And I've just, continued to sell it versus going in a million different directions. So it's worked.
I love that. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that from an introvert point of view as well. I know one of the things that we worked on together was you freeing up your space from as much admin or, ways that you could really focus on the writing, because you had a wait list of months and months at that time. And then you were like, I can't get all these people in and I don't want to turn them. I mean, good problems, right? Good problems to have. But really managing your energy so that you could stay in that zone of genius of, kind of focusing yourself on those VIP days and writing that client copy.
Yes. And it's funny because I just remembered a few minutes before this call that you have a couple cameos in my new book without even realizing it. I tell the story of how you had me get an app and track my time. And you
hated me.
I did. And of course, I'm a people pleaser. I will always do the homework. But in my mind, I'm like, this is such a waste of time to track my time. But then I was like, she was right, because it showed me where I was spending time on activities that were just, they weren't generating money for me. They were just a waste of time, basically. So that was a really good exercise. And then I had somebody come in and help me with some of those activities that didn't necessarily need me. They could, be done by somebody else. So yeah, I mean, you opened my eyes to a number of things, and that was one of them. So even though I was a bit hesitant and, grumpy about it in the beginning, inwardly, it was a great thing to do.
You were only slightly grumpy. I mean, if anyone checks you out after the podcast and they'll see your photos of your beautiful smiling face, and you always showed up to the call with a beautiful smiling face. And then when I said about the time tracking, you were kind of and the eyes kind of rolled a little bit and the shoulders went down. But yeah, sometimes these things are so important as introverts for managing our energy. And I remember you saying there was something, I think it might have been arranging sales calls or onboarding or something. And you were like, I can't believe how many hours I spent on that when I went back to look. And I know every time I time track in my business, I thought, I think things are taking me 30 minutes and they're taking 2 hours.
Oh, 100%. I think that's so typical that you underestimate the time. Like so many times in my business, especially those first couple of years where I was trying to do everything, there were so many times where I would be with my husband and son, watching TV, and I'd be like, just a minute, I'll be right back. I'm just going to do a quick thing, quotation marks here. I'll be right back. And it would always take me so much longer. And then now I just build that into my process. I know that things always take me longer than expected. So yeah, just stopping to that underestimation of those quick jobs.
And sometimes people think, especially when you are trying to scale a business or trying to, increase your revenue and not work extra, they think something like time tracking, it almost feels too simple. They think there's got to be some really complex way. You've got to build some fancy funnel, or you have to be like scaling a huge team. But sometimes it's the simple things that give us the right information to be able to, I think it freed up like an extra day and a half a month for you or something that potentially you could then write for clients.
Yeah, it absolutely did. I remember I was able to take on 1 or 2 more clients a month because of it, do another VIP day or 2. So it was well worth my time to track my time and then, serve more clients.
And when we talk about owning our energy and making sure that we are doing the right things and not overworking and not getting exhausted, this VIP day model has worked really well for you. Do you think it's because it puts you in, like, I'm in writer mode versus like I'm in business owner or marketing mode?
Yeah, for sure. So when I do the VIP days, I'm 100% in the zone of writing. I'm not switching back and forth from writing to admin to, doing my laundry on the lunch break. I'm like totally tapped into the writing. And it's also that I'm working on just one client project at a time too. So I'm not going back and forth between different clients during a given week or 2 weeks. I'm really focused on that one client. And with that said, though, the VIP day model is super intense. Like when I first started it, I would spend that whole day, 8 or 9 hours, just writing. But then I found that near the end of the day, my copy ideas weren't as creative as they were in the very beginning of the morning. So what I've done now on the back end is I've started the VIP day the day before. So I'll kind of get a few hours in, do some writing, and then the next day, there's not so much pressure to be super creative and get it all done in a day because that was feeling a bit intense. But this is all something I do on the back end. The client the client doesn't care. They just want to know if I promise the copy on, the next day, they're going to get it. So they don't care if I take a day and a half or a day, whatever it is. They just want to have the final result naturally.
And I think that's great because that, even as you're talking about it, it feels kind of spacious. You're like, well, I do it in a day, but I can do a couple of hours the day before. I can get prepped. I can get some stuff done so that you're going into it not feeling that pressure of like, I'm going to hunker down for 9 hours now and run out of creative juice. You're more going into it like, right, I'm prepped. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get this done.
Yeah, for sure. Because even as a copywriter, staring at a blank screen, a blank Google Doc is still, not fun. So, sitting down and at least having like some headline ideas and some flow to it ahead of time, that helps immensely.
I remember years ago, a copywriter friend of mine had a social media post and it said something like, if you're staring at a blank Google Doc and not knowing what to write and you need to buy my course or whatever. And someone was like, oh my God, that was exactly me. That's what I was doing. And she was like, I still do it. I'm a copywriter. I still stare at the blank Google Doc.
Yes, it happens. It happens. And that's when you just have to kind of just write anything. That's what they say. Just get something down and then you can come back to it later and perfect it. But if you just stay stuck on perfecting the headline, for example, right at the top, then yeah, you're going to be sitting there for a while.
So one of the things when we worked together, we worked together for 4 months. So I think you did an intensive first, which was like a month-long business plan intensive.
Yeah.
And then we had 4 months, which is very short for me. I only usually do 6, but I did these 4-month packages. And that's crazy to me when I look, because we did quite a lot in that time. It was quite a full-on 4 months, but
for sure, I feel like we were together longer.
I feel like we were together longer too, and I feel like it wasn't that long ago. But it's really interesting because you had so many ideas. You had so many ideas about your business, which isn't a bad thing, but you had different ideas about courses and programs and ways of doing things and writing a book, which is obviously an idea that has come to fruition that we're going to talk about. And one of the things that we really leaned into was this: which darlings do you kill? What do you keep? How do you know what to go with? Is it just a good idea? Is it a big sacral yes? Because as a generator, we really leaned into into that for you. And I think you must have had 7 or 8 different ideas that you just soundboarded. Let's do that with me. And some of them you've, carried on with, and some of them you were like, yeah, no, that's actually not right. I think this is important because as business owners, it's easy to think, oh, everyone else just has one idea and they just execute it and it's the right thing and away we go. But we're always thinking about things, making decisions and, either carrying on with them or letting them go. How has that felt to you since we worked together? Have there been more ideas that haven't made the sacral yes?
Yes, there have been more ideas, but I think I have, like to your point, I have gotten better at just, tuning out all the noise and just really focusing on 1 or 2 things at a time. Because I think that's the issue, is that when you're online, you see so many people, especially in your field. Like I see lots of other copywriters. I'm not the only copywriter in the world. So I see other copywriters launching, group coaching programs or full-on template libraries, all these things. And it's so easy to think, well, I should be doing that and that and that and that. But you can't do everything. So yeah, I've really leaned into, first and foremost, focusing on my clients and then doing kind of one back-end project at a time. So yeah, for this past year, 2024, for me, that project was writing a book. And there were times where, yes, it was very hard to just focus on that, in the sense that it was a big project. It wasn't just like writing a blog, right? It's a big project. So there were times as I was starting, mostly in the beginning, where I thought, do I really want to spend most of my time this year on this project when I could be, writing more templates for people or building this library or doing this or doing this? And so I had that thought of maybe I should stop writing a book. Maybe I should do these other things that may, generate more, fast turnaround income versus, sitting out for the long haul writing this book. But then ultimately, I just thought, how are you going to feel a year from now if you write the book and if you don't write the book? So I thought, if I don't write it, I'm going to be jealous of other people who have, said they wanted to write a book and written a book. And if I do write it, I'm going to just feel so proud of this accomplishment. And I literally pictured holding the physical copy in my hands and how, great that would feel. And not to be super cheesy, but I pictured having a brand photo shoot with me holding my book, like doing all the cheesy poses. And yeah, that was one of the things that kept me going. We can talk also about, the inspiration, the insights you gave me too. But yeah, it was really just tuning out those other things and focusing on one big thing at a time.
And I remember this idea has been kicking around for a while because we talked about it in early 2022 and you had been thinking about it for a while then. And I know you said to me, oh, my friend keeps saying to me, you should write a book. It would be amazing. And that was one of the discussions we had. I was like, okay, your friend says this, but how do you feel? And you were like, I feel quite excited by it. And that to me was the thing. It wasn't someone else is doing it, so I should, or someone said I should. You were like, no, it feels like fun and exciting and a bit scary, but it feels like a yes.
Yeah, I do remember that. I mean, I had friends in university saying you should write a book. And this goes way back. At the time, I had no idea. At the time, I probably thought I would write a romance book or a fiction book. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to write.
Sweet Valley High.
Yes, exactly.
That's what we bonded over, for anyone listening, on Instagram many years ago, of being pretty much the same age. I think we're 6 months apart, and being in that weird phase where you had no digital in your childhood. It was completely analog. And we used to read Sweet Valley High books. So
yes. And it's funny you mentioned that too. Just a side note is because, again, I mentioned that in my book. I talk. Yes, it's in this section where I talk about when you're selling, to connect first, sell later. So especially when you're meeting people online, not to go in like heavy with a hard sell, like get to know people first before you sell them. So I tell the story. I just say, a coach I used to work with, we met because you had posted something on your Instagram stories, like a Sweet Valley High image. And then I commented because I used to read those books too. And it was just this natural friendship that had started. And there was never any premeditation, like, you weren't thinking, I want her to be a client. And I wasn't thinking, I want her to be a client. Like, it just was this natural relationship. And then down the road, yes, I hired you as a coach. And then, you hired me as a copywriter, but it was never, again, like I said, it wasn't premeditated. But yes, that's an aside. Going back to the book, I do remember I had so this was probably, like you said, early 2022, I had come up with a Google Doc, because I tend to be organized, of just different points I had, a loose idea of the book. And then I remember writing pros of writing it, cons of writing it. And, the pros are obviously more visibility, credibility, all those things. And then the cons I had were, it's been done before, somebody else has done this topic, blah, 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 like ideas that I'm sure everybody has, right? Those imposter syndrome things. So I remember you had reviewed this doc and sent me a Loom back and, giving your insights and basically saying, yes, I think you should run with this. You seem excited about it. It's a great idea. And I specifically remember you saying, based on my human design, which I don't know what my human design is, but I remember you telling me what my human design was and saying, based on your human design, you're the kind of person who will have an idea and get super excited about it. You'll be super passionate about it. But then afterwards, the logic will step in. You'll convince yourself that it's not a good idea, all the reasons why you shouldn't. So I specifically remember you saying something to the effect of, don't let your head talk you out of something your heart wants to do. Or your gut. I don't remember what body it
would have
was,
been your gut. But I think it's the same sentiment for a lot of people. It's like a feeling versus a thought.
Yes, because there will always be a reason to not do something. And so that really stuck with me as I was writing the book. Like I said, especially in the beginning, when I thought of reasons why it would be easier to set this idea aside, that thought, it was like you were a little bird chirping on my shoulder with that sentence. Yes. And I thought, yeah, don't talk yourself out of this. You were really excited about it. You are really excited about it. Just do it. And here we are. My book is done. It's just been, released on Amazon. And I feel great. Like, even if it's not like a huge bestseller, like I feel so proud that I accomplished this. And I have this, to pass on to my son, who's, he's obviously not a female entrepreneur, but it just feels great that I finished it.
Oh, I love it. And I'm so proud of you. And it's so true with coaching. Sometimes people think coaching is all, just mentorship or just go and do these 3 things by next week. But what I find generally is the conversations, both as a coachee and as a coach here, the conversations that I have with coaches and clients, someone will say something like that and it sticks with me. And I'm like, oh, and it's not necessarily like, oh, I paid for this amount of time or I paid for this answer here, but you gain perspective and reflections and wisdom and different ways of looking at things. And something like that you can latch onto. I can think of 2 or 3 things that coaches of mine have said to me, and I'm like, oh, and I still remember how I felt when someone said it. I still, probably remember the call and, where I was. And I'm like, oh, that makes a difference.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think coaching is so valuable just because you've got that outside perspective. You have somebody looking into your business and just guiding you in a way that maybe you can't see for yourself because you're too close to things. So yeah, 100%. And it's also like what they say about sometimes when you purchase a course and maybe you don't finish the whole thing, but if you gain something really juicy and important from it that helps you, get your results faster or quicker, life is easier because of it, then it's worth it, even if you didn't complete every single module of the course.
That is so true. Many years ago, one of the first investments I made in my business was a group program. It was a year-long group program. And I remember a girl joined it a couple of months after me, and she was much further ahead in business. And she really got stuck in. She came to every call. She came to the retreat. She did the things. And about 6 months later, she disappeared. And someone kind of followed up with her and was like, are you okay? Did something happen? And she went, no, I got what I needed. And she'd paid for the year, but she'd got what she needed and she was busy and she was like, I don't need this curriculum anymore. I don't need this type of support. She was totally happy with what she'd got. And I think that's that's a very abundant mentality to have. Like you said, like, I don't have to finish the whole course. It's not about getting my money's worth in volume. It's about getting my money's worth in value.
Yes. And yeah, it's mindset too. It's not like, okay, I've paid this amount and I need it to be worth it. There's that desperation there. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So tell us about the book.
Okay, so the book is about running an online business as an introvert. And I thought of doing it just about copywriting because, like I said, I'm a copywriter. But then I just thought, oh, that might be boring. I think I'm going to bore myself if it's just about copywriting. So it's really about, multiple facets of running a business. So branding, copywriting. Copywriting is a big part of it because as an introvert, you're using your carefully curated words to sell on your behalf. So yes, copywriting is a big part. But like I said, branding, copywriting, pricing your services, money mindset, selling your services and everything that comes up there, client boundaries, managing your energy, like so many things. And it's all through the lens of an introvert because, that's what I am. And the book is called Don't Ask Me to Be Loud, The Introverted Girl's Guide to Online Business. And the title, it really stems from my experiences more so in corporate and, the experiences of other introverts I talk to where so many times you have these great ideas, you're intelligent, you're owning your title, but people, your managers, they're telling you, you need to be louder, you need to be more aggressive, you need to be more assertive if you want to succeed. And I just remember feeling so frustrated, like, why can't my copywriting or why can't my work speak for itself? Why do I have to be louder? Why do I have to be somebody I'm not? Like, it doesn't seem like the extroverts are being told to be quieter. Maybe they are, I don't know, but it just felt like I was always asked to be somebody I wasn't. And it was all with good intention. I think my bosses just really wanted me to succeed. But yeah, so the book is basically starting with you're told to be somebody you're not. But with that said, it does talk about leaving room for some expansion and reinvention. So no, you don't have to change who you are, but you should be open to some growth. Like, if somebody invites you on a podcast and you think you're going to be nervous, just say yes. Say yes one time and see what happens. So yes, in a nutshell, running a joyful business you love, an in-demand business you love as an introvert.
I'm so glad you made that distinction because there is honoring your traits, honoring your personality, working in a way that works for your energy. But that doesn't mean that we never push outside of our comfort zone or that we don't do things feeling scared. Like I still do things in my business feeling scared. I still, do new things and I'm like, this feels a bit sticky, but hey ho, here we go. I've done something else before and felt like this and it's fine. But it's not about going, no, I'm only comfortable doing this thing. But it's not about going to the extreme of changing who you are and how you act.
Yeah, it's somewhere right in the middle. And I find sometimes people will use their introversion maybe as an excuse. I don't know if I should say that, but let's say, well, I'm an introvert, so I can't or I won't. But I mean, just try. Just try the activity. If you absolutely hate it, if it doesn't feel right, you can always say no next time. But yeah.
I'm an introvert, so I can't do video is one that has come up a lot. I've heard a lot over the years. I don't coach as many entrepreneurs now, but that's one that people are very much. And I'm like, tell me about that. How does that work?
Yeah, you're not going to let that slide.
I'm like, yeah. But, you can go and rest after it, which is the important thing. So, yeah, it's definitely about pushing yourself a little bit. And what you said about podcasts, a client of mine, she got invited on her first podcast last year and she was super nervous and she was asking me a ton of questions. I'm like, you're just going to show up and have a conversation with someone who sounds really interesting. It's someone you know already. They have a business. You're just going to go and have an interesting conversation. And that's it. And she said, well, what if I make a mistake? I said, well, they'll edit it out. Well, what if this? And I was like, well, you don't know if you don't try. And she was like, this was the best thing ever. I had such a great time. And now she's pitching to podcasts all over the place.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's funny though that she said, what if I make a mistake? But it doesn't have to be perfect. And I've had people say, it's okay if you make a mistake. It's actually better because it shows you're human. Like if you flip up on a word or two, that's human. That's, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I love that she now loves podcasting.
She does. And I think it's obviously a wonderful modality for introverts anyway, because we get to have a nice deep conversation with someone, which is kind of where we're at our best usually.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But this whole introvert thing, I just remember I had a bunch of limiting beliefs when I moved from corporate to online business. I remember thinking, based on that experience in corporate, when I go online, how am I going to stand out as an introvert? How am I, as this quiet, unassuming copywriter, going to stand out when there's so many bigger, bolder personalities out there? So maybe some of your listeners can, relate to that, where they feel like they need to be bigger or bolder to stand out. But really, you don't have to be, because there's always going to be people who resonate with your character or your style, your vibe, your quality of work. So yeah.
Back to the video thing, actually, a lot of my people don't like to watch video. I've toyed with the idea of making this podcast a video, and the feedback I generally get is, no, I like to listen to it while I'm cooking dinner, or I like to listen in the car, or when I'm walking the dog, or whatever the thing is, that they don't want the screen time. So big, like highly produced video podcasts might work really well for some people, works really well for Joe Rogan, but my audience is probably not the same as Joe Rogan. So I think it's understanding that people will appreciate you for who you are and you doing things the way you want to do things as well.
Yeah. And that's so good that you know your audience so well to adapt to what they need to.
Yeah. I definitely don't want to spend a ton of time. I don't mind doing video, but I don't want to spend a ton of time if everyone's just going to be like, oh, I'm going to listen to the audio.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm with them too. I love podcasts.
Are you an audio person?
Yeah.
So the book is out, available on Amazon. Obviously, yes, I'm going to share all of the links. Now that you said you had that visualization, you had that, to keep you going. I'm going to have a new brand shoot, and I'm going to be holding the book and all of this, which is now in progress. How does it feel that you have literally created what you set out to create?
It feels amazing. At the same time, it feels like it's not really real yet. I've had a few people say to me, you need to go out and celebrate. You need to do something big. And it doesn't feel like it's real yet. And every once in a while, I do have to catch myself with, those minimizing feelings. I had a therapist one time tell me that I tend to minimize accomplishments. And so sometimes I hear myself saying, well, it's not a huge book. It's only about 53,000 words, which, my book coach said, this is the amount you want to do. You don't want to do 80, 90,000. Like, for this type of book, this is ideal. So that was great. I didn't have to do this giant book. But every once in a while, I hear myself minimizing it, saying, well, it's a smaller book, or this or that. And then I have to stop myself and be like, no, this is, let yourself take credit for this. You had that goal. Like you said, I set out to do it and I did it. So yeah, I am super excited. It's just very new. So I'm still celebrating.
Well, I agree. There does need to be a huge celebration. And I would also love to know, with the writing of it, did you batch and block time? Was it treated like you would treat client work, or was it here and there when you had the time, when you were in the zone?
Oh my gosh. In the beginning, so I started writing it last January 2024. And I self-published. So I think I should mention that, because I think sometimes if you're going with your traditional publisher, you may not be able to get everything written, edited, designed, and published within a year. So when I think about it, it was a fairly quick process. So I started writing it last January, and it was, very inconsistent writing. I did not set specific times. It was here and there. And I don't know when I just became really serious about it. I think, I don't know. A couple of months later, I thought, okay, I need to take this more seriously, because this is just not working with just here and there. So then I really, hammered down on it. And then in June, I signed up with selfpublishing.com. And that's when with that program, I got a one-to-one book coach. And so again, the people pleaser in me was like, I want to show up to my calls having written X amount of chapters. So it was really just that accountability. Yeah. So she didn't help me write the book. By that point, I think when I had my first call with her, I was at about 30,000 words. And she said, wow, okay, you are more than halfway done. And I was like, what? I am? I thought at that point I needed to write 90,000 words. And so from then on, I just really got into it. And, having that coach, again, coaching is so great for accountability. Then I think I finished at end of July, finished writing it. And then, of course, it went to a third-party editor, because, I did not trust my own writing, in the sense that sometimes when you've looked at something so long, you can miss over the word to or and. So, you don't see those tiny mistakes. So it went to a professional editor. And then after that, it went to a third-party proofreader, even for one last check. Then it went into interior layout, cover design, all those things. So it's a process. It doesn't happen right away. But so the accountability was big for me.
Friends of mine that have books have said, and I'm curious to see if you found this, that the first 10% and the last 10% are the hardest.
I don't know, because the first thing I wrote was my intro. And I think because it's a story, I wrote it right away. I think that was the first thing I wrote right in January. I showed it to my mom and one of my sisters. And then after that, there was a big pause. Then I didn't write for a while. But that intro, it's what you see in the book now is pretty much what it was that first draft. Yeah. I mean, from first draft to second draft, I really didn't change a lot. And I don't know if that's typical, but I also started with a solid outline. That's another portion of it too, is that I really mapped out the chapters in advance and had loose ideas of what stories I wanted to tell. There's lots of stories throughout the book, what examples I wanted to use so that when it came time to writing, it was, I wasn't starting at a blank screen.
So now that it's almost complete and out in the world, what does 2025 look like for you? What's your behind the scenes project going to be, if you can?
Well, I think it's honestly going to be promoting the book. I almost feel like promoting the book is going to be a bigger job than writing it because, I think just getting it out there because, I have a great community. I have had people on my book waitlist since last June. They have been with me since last June. So these are I have my regular email list, and then I have people that were just following behind the scenes. And so every week, and then every other week, because every week was a lot, I gave them behind the scenes into the journey. And so whether it was talking about how I chose an editor or just limiting beliefs or just, the best parts of writing a book, I took them behind the scenes. And so they came along with me. And now that I've, semi-launched it, they were just, excited to grab it. But now, so aside from them, now I have to go. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember what your initial question was. Now for 2025, I've got this fan base, this small fan base, but I have to expand.
Don't minimize. You have a fan base.
I have a fan base, and they are amazing. They are truly amazing. These are people who back in June said, hey, when your book comes out, I want to buy it. And they have already ordered it. So these are amazing people. But now for 2025, I realize that I also have to expand my reach and, get my book in front of more people, basically. So I think that's going to take a good chunk of the year. But yes, I have other ideas too. I want to be more visible on LinkedIn. I want to build my template shop. Here I go with all my other ideas.
Oh, well, I love that. And thank you for sharing, because I think it gives people permission to realize that no one has it all figured out. And, we're all still juggling balls and coming up with things and trying to decide what's the best.
Yeah, for sure. I will probably do more visibility activities this year. Last year, I took a bit of a break from, I still did a couple of podcasts and I spoke in a couple coaching groups, but I really put that on the back burner because I was writing a book. So I really did focus on client work and the book. And I think this year, again, tied into the book, I will try to do more podcast interviews like this because I really enjoy them, and maybe some guest coaching, those kind of things.
Well, I know that a number of people listening to this podcast are either entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs, and almost everyone that listens to it is an introvert. So I know that they will gain so much wisdom and value from your book. Of course, I'm going to put the link in the show notes. I'm going to put all of your links as well, Nicole, where they can reach you online, on social, etc. But before I let you go, I'm going to ask you the same question that I ask all of my introverted guests. And that is, what is one way that you make sure you own your energy so that you can keep performing at your best?
Yeah, I thought about this, and it is listening to my gut more, especially when I have calls with new potential clients. So because most of my business is serving one-to-one clients. So it's very important that I work with people who are just a joy to work with. And, so now I've gotten better at listening to my gut so that if there are a bunch of red flags waving in front of me, I don't still say, sure, I'll take you on. Sure, let's work together. Before I might have done that because I thought, well, I have to accept everybody. I need to make more money. It's, I don't have a paycheck anymore. But now I'm just, very careful about that. And I will say most of the people I speak to are amazing. It's very, very rare that I get a red flag client where I think, okay, this person is just going to suck my soul. Do not work with this person. But yeah, just being a bit more particular about the people and projects.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. It was a joy to catch up with you and see you. And congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much. I feel like this went way too fast. We will have to catch up again.
Absolutely. See you soon. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. I hope that you're feeling expanded to what's possible for you, motivated to take action, and inspired about how you can start to own your energy. I share even more tools and resources on my Introverts Only email newsletter. By signing up, you not only get early access to the Ambitious Introvert products and services, but you also get brand new podcast episodes delivered straight to your inbox every Monday, meaning you'll never miss your weekly dose of introvert-friendly inspiration. Sign up now at theambitiousintrovert.com/newsletter or click the link in the show notes. See you next week.